Hey everyone, it's Jim
And Charles
from Valves and More, an online vintage tube store. And today in Tube Lab number 178, we're going to compare two very different vintage 12AX7's. But first, caution everyone, electronics and tube amplifiers can have very high voltages present, which can be lethal. Exercise extreme caution when working around them. Always consult a professional technician when in doubt. Well, before we start talking about the 12AX7's, I've got a little bit of an announcement. In the last year, as the kit business has grown, in fact it doubled in 1 year, the requests for a pre-built kit just keep coming in.
And especially lately, we just keep getting emails asking people from people asking us to build them for them.
So we're now going to offer a professional build service. If you're interested, just drop into the store and on the top middle right, you'll see Millitone Kits. And that'll give you access to detailed descriptions of the kit. But should you have any questions, just drop us a line. And I'll put a link right below the video so that you can quick link to them.
Yep.
Okay. Well, Charles, you've got two lovely vintage tubes that we recently managed to find enough inventory to make nice, low noise pairs. What have you got?
Okay, let's take a look here. So anybody that knows the 12AX7 knows that finding good quality vintage versions of them is just getting harder and harder. Just like with power tubes and their higher failure rate, whenever you have a high gain tube, they're much more prone to noise and having mismatched sections. So whenever we're sourcing tubes, we always try to find tubes that we really like the sound of, that we can stand behind, that we know are going to be reliable. And so we focus in on a few different types. And we've recently found a new 12AX7 type that we really, really like the sound of. And we're hoping you will too.
And we managed to restock enough of the lovely RFT ECC83s. ECC83 is just the European tube number for
the 12AX7.
Yeah, same tube.
So this is it right here. These are an old favorite of ours. They're very reliable. They're very clean and clear and even sounding, which is sort of the standard for a lot of 12AX7's, although some might even call them flat sounding. These aren't flat sounding. They sound great. And they have a very, very different structure from almost every other 12AX7 out there. They've got this sort of wing plate with these holes on the back. Hopefully you can see that okay. And these are just great tubes. We're always happy when we can find them. They're fairly rare now. This particular example was actually made in the Newhouse factory, and you can tell that from the stylized end that looks like a tube. So that's another neat tube logo from East Germany, or the German Democratic Republic,
as it was then known.
Yeah. And we even actually got in a few new old stock RFT boxes, and these are really rare to find with these tubes. Most of the time they're coming bulk packed. And they're not that much to look at, but they're neat looking, and it's nice to have boxes. You don't always get boxes with new old stock tubes, especially these days, so.
Yeah, in fact, we actually had a customer complain recently that his used tubes arrive without boxes, and that's pretty normal. We almost never get even with a good used tubes, we almost never get the boxes.
And the older you get, the more degraded the boxes are.
A lot of boxes. I mean, early Slovenia, almost any early tube from the 30s, 40s, and 50s, the boxes just literally disintegrate even if they look whole when they get in.
We throw out at least half of them in most cases.
Yeah, and then a lot of tubes arrive bulk packed. So they come in case lots of 50 and 100, and they never had a box.
Yeah, sometimes we're just getting partial case lots, but either way, no boxes with those guys.
Yeah.
So let's take a look at our latest find that we're going to get behind. This is the Matsushita short plate 12AX7. And these are beautiful tubes.
I'd like to thank you right now for including me in finding them, but I didn't have anything. I didn't have anything to do with it. You're the tube man.
Yeah. Oh, we work together on almost everything else, so that's fine. And anybody familiar with the 12AX7's will say, well, that looks kind of familiar. What is that?
Oh, look at the hole on the side of the plate. That was one of the years and years ago when I first got into tubes. That was one of the first things I learned, that hole in the side of the plate is a good indicator of a
mullard.
Not always, but it's often a good indicator. Or mullard machining that was used to assemble the plate.
Or Phillips 12AX7's, which were all built on this design. And this is actually what this is. This is a national branded, Matsushita made 12AX7 that was built on mullard tooling, which is just really cool. And you can even see it has the top seams that are indicative of that same tooling. The only thing it doesn't have on it are Phillips tube codes, because at the time that these were made, Phillips did not own Matsushita. Actually, I'm not sure if they ever actually bought them, but they did have a partnership with them.
Phillips bought out so many companies, it's almost a safe bet to just say, oh, well, eventually they bought them out.
Eventually,
but no, our rule of thumb is never to actually say anything that we're not 100% sure of, or mostly sure of.
So let's compare two tubes side by side. On the right here, let's get that in focus. We've got an actual mullard. This is an Electro Home branded one.
Well, our viewers, to them, that's the other side. That's their left side.
Yeah. Anyway, and you can see
they could figure that
the hole in there. And over here, we've got its cousin from Japan. And the reason why we're getting behind these tubes is that the mullards, the Mullard and the Phillips 12AX7's are fantastic sounding tubes. They're known for being one of the warmer of the 12AX7's.
And the 12AX7 can, like a lot of high gain tubes, can be very flat and neutral sounding.
Yeah. And they can also be very noisy too. And along with the warmth of the Mullard tubes tends to come a higher noise floor and a higher chance that you're going to have a noisy section.
So there's a lot of loss. It makes an expensive rare tube already. Even more expensive.
So they're expensive, they're hard to source, they're hard to match. You lose a lot of them whenever you get them in. So it's not great to deal with them, and it's hard to stock them in any sort of quantities.
And they become very rare.
But thankfully, we've been able to find decent quantities of new old stock Matsushitas and a fairly large lot of used ones that we are going to have matched up and in the store and tested and ready to go for you guys this weekend. So we're really looking forward to that. And this, just like the Mullard, is probably one of, if not the warmest sounding 12AX7 I have ever heard. And as soon as I heard it, I said, Dad, we have to go and get more of these right away.
Now, a pro tip, if with high gain tubes in particular, and power tubes, and basically any tube, but especially with high gain tubes that are prone to noise, if you can find them new old stock, new in the box, the real deal, not somebody's manufactured fake box, which is getting really common. It's embarrassing to see people manufacturing fake boxes. But if you can get them new old stock, it's worth the extra money. I know that it's a lot more money to go from a good used tube to a new old stock tube, but it's a much, much safer bet that you'll own that tube for a long time. Now, if it's not available new old stock or your budget's tight, good used tubes, at least from us, is a safe bet, because not only do we test them
at correct operating points and listen to them
and match them up properly. Charles has got, can I say you've got golden ears?
I am very picky.
He's very picky.
If something is even just a little bit noisy, I reject it right away. It's not going out.
Yeah. So since Charles designed and built a dedicated testing preamp that takes care of pretty much all of our preamp tubes.
Yeah, most of them.
I don't know, we almost never get problems from tubes that we've shipped.
No.
We didn't have a lot before because we were clearing them for noise, but with headphones and a well-designed testing preamp, that pretty much eliminates problems. Any problems develop normally through shipping.
Yeah.
Or improper use of the tubes. Some people insist on putting tubes in circuits that they were never designed for.
Yeah, unfortunately.
And then wonder why the tube is noisy or is not working properly.
Yeah.
Anyways, that's not you guys, right?
Yeah. All right, so let's move on here. We're going to go and have a listen to these tubes, and you can compare them yourself. But real quick, look at the boxes that some of these Matsushitas came in. Look at the size difference. This is a standard 9-pin box. Isn't this amazing? They put it in something that's somewhere between a standard 9-pin box and an octal box, and they have this fantastic cardboard cradle in here for keeping it safe.
Oh, I love those.
Like, this just shows that they really cared about shipping the tube and storing it properly. And
I wish everybody had made those cradles, because a lot of tubes that got damaged over the years
would have survived better. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, let's go have a listen and see what you think.
Then you look at me like you don't know, and you talk to me like you've never met me. Well, I can leave you alone if I try. If I try, I can tell you goodbye. If I wanted to, I could be long gone. I don't have to crawl. Then you call on me as if I should run to you, and you make your moves as if I should follow you. Well, I don't have to be nobody's fool, and I don't make no exception to you. No, I don't have to be nobody's fool, and I don't make no exception to you. Oh, I don't have to crawl. I can just walk away. I don't have to crawl. No, I don't have to get down on my knees. Then you look at me like you don't know, and you talk to me like you've never met me. Well, I can leave you alone if I try. If I try, I can tell you goodbye. If I wanted to, I could be long gone. I don't have to crawl. Then you call on as if I should follow you. Well, I don't have to be nobody's fool, and I don't make no exception to you. No, I don't have to be nobody's fool, and I don't make no exception to you. Oh, I don't have to call. I can just walk away. I don't have to run. No, I don't have to get down on my knees.
Wow, that was Emmylou Harris's 8th album, Evangeline. And even though it's basically a compilation of material that didn't make it into her previous albums, it's just a really great album. And, you know, maybe her blending of traditional country, bluegrass, with a little bit of pop thrown in is not, you know, something you think would be your cup of tea. I would give Emmylou a try. She's got a great voice, and she always has really great backing musicians. So her sound is very, very good. And some artists, I think, cared about how they sound on their records, and Emmylou's her crew really, somebody cared. In fact, Charles and I often look at each other when we put a new record on, and it sounds fantastic, and we know right away
Somebody cared.
at least one person cared how this record sounds.
Yeah.
Sometimes a whole team, but at least one person cared. So, and of course, this is an all analog recording. That means it was recorded to tape. It means that it was mixed and mastered on an analog desk. And it means, of course, that it was cut. The lacquer for the record was cut with an analog machine. And of course, the record itself, the vinyl, is analog. And we played it back on an analog system. So there's no digital anywhere in it. And there's just something magical about an all analog recording that's well done.
Well, it is digital on the YouTube side.
Yeah.
But we can't do anything about that. I don't think YouTube's going to distribute analog media for you guys to listen to.
No, but we do have friends occasionally into the music room. And usually, we can just put something on and it's like they start grinning from ear to ear when they hear the quality of the sound.
Yeah.
Okay, well, didn't that sound great? One of my favorite things to do in these tube labs is to go into the music room and make some recordings. I know we're on YouTube Sound, but YouTube Sound, particularly in the last year, has become quite good.
If you're listening on, a good sound card with a good pair of headphones, it's giving you a pretty good representation.
Yeah, my tablet has a great speaker system. It's got 6 built-in speakers, and our videos sound really quite good. Okay, so Charles, in general, what are the main differences between these tubes? They're very different sonically.
They are. I mean, the RFT tends to have the most detail, a very even presentation, not flat sounding, but at the same time not quite as dynamic or as warm as the Matsushita, which just brings the warmth to the mid-range, the bass. It tends to have a heavier bass on it. And despite that, they are, in my experience, lower noise than the Mullards.
Right. Oh, and one thing you wanted to mention is that we often have really good testing 12AX7's that aren't close matched. So they're not, a lot of these tubes are going to be used in phono preamps. That's probably the most common use. And phono preamps need close matched, low noise tubes. but the close matching is important. So
There are some exceptions depending on topology, but most of them are going to need close match sections.
yeah, so you end up with some very high testing, either new old stock or very, very good used tubes that don't have a home. So you came up with an idea for people who have guitar amplifiers and are more interested in tone than matched tubes, because normally those instruments are all mono. So they're just using one gain stage after another. Normally the first tube on a guitar amp is the high gain tube. So you've put a discount section into the store.
Yeah, for each of our 12AX7's that we stock decent numbers on, there's now going to be a discounted version for it that is called the mismatch version. And sometimes, I think we're 30 to 40% off on those tubes, new old stock and used. And they are perfect for guitar amps or any sort of mono system that you might have where you're not worried about the sections being matched. So that's a way for us to sell tubes that aren't great for hi-fi systems but are fantastic for instruments.
Right. Okay, well, that was a good idea. Okay, well, hopefully everybody enjoyed listening to the differences of these tubes. The Matsushita's will, I don't know, will we be able to keep inventory? I'm not sure. If you want to try these or try the RFTs, they're not a tube that we have a reliable source for. We
get them when we find them.
We get them when they find them. So if you want them, grab them now and run. Okay.
Well, let's take a look at what came in here. Okay, so first of all, we've been getting in some more Japanese 6GU7s, just like we've been getting in more of the Japanese 6CG7s because of the huge demand on them. And what we've got here are the Hitachi-made versions, and you can see we're getting some very tight, close-matched pairs here. I mean, it doesn't get much better than that, does it? And these are just really nice substitutions for 6SN7 tubes. They will drop into a 6SN7 slot with the correct 9-pin to octal adapter and work in, I would say, 99.9% of cases. They're very similar spec-wise. And the 6GU7s just bring something different to the sound of a 6SN7 amp. It's got its own unique sound. How would you describe it?
Well, as a general description of the type, it's a very clean, open,
very detailed.
Very detailed. Well, what happens is the 6SN7 is really a delicious sounding tube. If if you wanted to make an analogy across to food, but it's a warm, rich sounding tube, and it gets that warmth and richness through lots of second harmonics. Second harmonics are what you would hear in a really good concert hall that fill in the sound and just make you just want to close your eyes and float into the music, or let the music float into you. But with the 6GU7 and the 6CG7, its close cousin, the harmonic distortion is lower. And the minute you lower the distortion, the clarity comes up.
And they tend to have very wide-sounding, open sound stages, which just help the music come to life.
And that's all part of the higher level of clarity. The beauty of vacuum tubes is that the tubes are the amplifiers. If you've corresponded with me, you've probably heard me say that more than once in quotes. And what happens is, when you change out your tubes, you're changing your amplifier. So it doesn't really matter if it's a preamp, if it's a phono preamp, a head preamp, a buffer, a monoblock. When you change those tubes, if the signature of the tubes sonically is different than what you had, you almost have a new amplifier. Yes, it's going to have the same topology, and it'll be still sort of a similar sound. But man, especially with preamp tubes, you can really change the sound.
That's why people love rolling them. Okay, let's take a look at what else we've got.
Well, one of my favorite power tubes is the EL34. It does everything I want. It's got enough power, it's got warmth, it's got richness, it's got detail. And of course, it was the first modern high-powered output tube, and Philips developed it with Mullard. And there's a couple of tubes that come fairly close to the Mullard XF2s, which, in my opinion, are the greatest EO34 ever made. Now, some would argue that the very rare early metal-based tubes, I should have dug, we have some. They're worth, I don't know, $1,000 a piece. And there's just not enough of them around in the world to even make up a match quad. So I don't talk about ultra-rare tubes that nobody can afford, including us.
There's no point.
There's no point. But the RFT EO34 it does everything well, and it has its own bit of uniqueness in that it has probably the best clarity of any EO34 ever made, even compared to the Mullard XF2s. It's a little less warmth. We were just talking about that with 12AX7's. And
the RFT as well versus a tube made on Mullard tooling.
And the 6SN7 as well. The minute you have a little less warmth, you have a little less distortion. And the minute you have less distortion, you have better clarity. And that was what the RFT was all about. Charles is getting bored because he's starting to push buttons on the test equipment. Whenever I get a new reel-to-reel deck in, the first thing he wants to do is to test the buttons for the feel of them.
I don't know about you guys, but I love a good tactile button.
I don't know if people really want to know about that.
All right, one more thing to look at.
Anyways, hey, I'm not done talking about the RFTs. I can talk forever about my favorite tubes. The thing about these is that we've been able to find enough high-quality Newell stock, high testing, close matched quads to keep them in stock in the store. And that's always a big, big bonus. And in addition to the fact that they sound great, they are one of the most reliable of all the EO34s ever
They
made.
test so consistent. We very rarely have a noisy one or a failure. They're just really good tubes.
Yeah, excellent tubes. Okay, what's next, Charles?
Okay, last one. And talking about rare tubes and ones that are hard to find, this is one that we're still trying to stock because it hasn't quite run out yet.
Yeah, and they're great sounding, probably the best sounding KT88 ever made.
No, he spoils it. I was going to show them the end of the box. Yep, it's a KT88, and it's, other than the Svetlana 6550, this is the only KT88 that we actually stand behind and try to stock and try to get in.
Now, this is the true vintage SED tube. So SED stands for Svetlana Electronic Devices.
Mm-hmm.
The plant was in St. Petersburg, Russia, and one of the dead giveaways to this being a true KT88 is the square punch outs and the tabs, the round tabs where it's tack welded on, where the two halves of the plate's tack welded on. Caution, there are even copies of the original tube itself, and even though we specialize in the KT88 and the 6550C, we still sometimes have to pause and wonder, is this the real deal or is it not? And there are just so many attempts to copy this tube in another Russian plant, believe it or not.
Yep.
And I would actually get behind that if they sounded good. Or were reliable, or
like with the Matsushita's built on the actual original tooling. Yeah.
Yeah. So, and unfortunately they're not. So watch out, folks. There's actually now there's literally dozens of copies and fakes out there in the common marketplace. Not just hiding in some little corner of Facebook Marketplace, but on real company websites. Mm-hmm. And we get emails almost every day from these turkeys saying, why aren't you buying thousands and thousands of the real thing? We have the very last tubes from the St. Petersburg factory.
Yeah, if only it were that easy.
Yeah,
well, thankfully we managed to find another quad of these, and we haven't tested them yet. That's probably going to be a job for later today or tomorrow, but we're hoping that we're going to have a match quad in the store with them.
Yeah, well, believe it or not, we have 3 3 match sets. So we have 3 trios.
Yep.
And which is a big investment because these are not cheap, even wholesale. And with any luck, we'll start making up match quads again.
Yep. And the same happened with the 6550. We've got a box full of 6550s that aren't matched quads, but we have matched pairs, matched triples, and they're just waiting for their friends to show up and complete that quad.
Yeah, and actually we got really lucky. We have some 6550s coming in from 2 wholesalers, and hopefully next week you'll be seeing some matched quads up here. The bad news is that the 6550 is now an endangered tube, like the KT88, and the wholesale price has just gone up to the point where we'll, for the first time actually in years, we're going to have to raise the price on them.
Yeah, we can't find them for the prices we used to, and if we can find them at all, they're much more expensive.
So anyways, that's a downer. How about we go out on a positive note, Charles?
Okay.
So we do have some discount codes to help you out. And people have been grabbing a secret code that's really easy to figure out. It's sort of logical. Yeah, okay, that's all the hints I'm going to give you. And there is another secret code if you spend a lot of money. So I'll give you a good hint. So if you cross over the next logical, very large amount spent, then you can have a Cheers code for it. And only one person has ever got that. Actually, 2 people guessed it, and 1 people actually used one people?
One person.
One person. You think English is like my 3rd language or something. Anyways, 1 person actually used it. And we just love it when returning customers and viewers like you use the Cheers codes.
That's what we have them for.
And of course, we've got $20 flat rate shipping around the world. And if your order is $150 or more, after discount, the shipping's on us, folks. Stay safe, everyone. This is Jim.
And Charles.
Signing off. Cheers, everyone.